From the New York City area, welcome to the Badass Counseling Show, where the master badass himself, Sven takes you deep and gives balm for the soul, baby.
Welcome to the Badass Counseling Show. I am Sven your host. Where are you today? Are you driving? Are you in the stables, cleaning the kitchen, downstairs, getting that thing all squared away? Where are you at? If you are anything like my niece, you are out on the ocean somewhere on a giant ship. Wherever you may be, thank you for tuning into the Badass Counseling Show. It's great to have you here. I am joined remotely by KC and also by Rob the Rocket sitting next to me. How are you today?
Good day, sir. I'm fine. It's a serious program. People have their issues. You deal with them so well. But hey, have you heard that great joke about gaslighting?
No, I haven't.
Yes, you have.
Well played, Rob. Well played. All right. Well, Rob, we've got an interesting guest today. Georgette, what can you tell me about Georgette?
Well, Georgette wrote into us and said, I've never been able to really make friends. As a child, I had few people I talked to and never did anything beyond school with them. Now at 42, I don't have anyone I'm close to as far as friendships go. When I was younger, I clung to other adults in my life, like moms I babysat for, and tried to be friends with them.
Georgette, good to have you on the show.
Good morning.
Thanks for coming on. Quick little bio there. Sometimes we have very long stories. Sometimes we have medium. And then sometimes they just get to the point. And yours is a get to the point bio. So why don't you and I do that? Let's get to work. You said I've never been able to really make friends as a child. I had few people I talked to and never did anything beyond school with them. Let me ask you, as a child, to the best that you can recall, what was the fear?
Being made fun of.
Being made fun of, right? Mm-hmm. And that's pretty normal when you're that age, being made fun of. And did you have experiences where you were made fun of?
Yeah, I had an older sister who made fun of me daily.
Oh, really? What sort of things would your older sister say?
She used to always call me a bitch in front of her friends.
Was that at a young age? Because that's more of a 12-year-old word than a 6-year-old word. What age? Well, first of all, what's the age split between you and your sister? And what's the earliest 8 years?
8 years.
Oh, well, then that could explain it. What's the earliest you recall her being mean to you? Like more than once? I mean, there's the occasional one, but where it was a thing. What's the earliest you recall? How old were you?
I was probably about 5.
Wow. And at that age, then she would have been 13. Was the insult then at that point, bitch? Was that what you were getting at 5, or were there other things? Or help me understand.
It was mostly calling me a bitch in front of her friends. She would torture me in front of her friends.
In what ways?
At one point, probably the worst thing that happened was she held me down and put her dirty feet in my mouth.
And that was in front of friends as well, or that was not in front of friends?
Oh no, her friends were an audience.
Wow. Oh my gosh. And so would it be safe to say you were living in fear of your sister to a large degree?
Oh yeah.
And any other siblings in the family?
Yep, I have 2 brothers also.
An
older brother and a younger brother.
Gotcha. And just out of curiosity, were your parents privy to all of this?
I don't think my father was. My mom was, but my mom also feared her.
There we go. Mom also feared her. And just out of curiosity, why would mom also fear your sister?
At that point, I don't think she quite feared her, but I think my sister was 15 or 16, and my sister tried to strangle my mom.
She was 15. Just out of curiosity, is your sister the oldest?
Yes.
And how old was your mother when she had your sister?
22, I believe.
22. Okay. And so by 15, your sister tries to strangle your mother. Okay. What was the relationship between you and your mother?
So at 5 years old, my mom had my younger brother.
Mm-hmm.
She went into a severe depression herself. My dad was pretty absent. So I was considered like the lost child. Their relationship, I don't know for sure how their relationship was. I know that my sister ended up having to take care of my younger brother.
Oh, wow. So your mom checked out then. Really checked
pretty
out.
much.
Okay. And your older sister had to take care of your younger brother. And then your older sister also engaged in the torment of you. Dad presumably is what, working the whole time then, or dad's absent? What's the story?
Either he's working softball or just he's there, but doesn't really engage in any of us.
Gotcha. And so it would be reasonable to say that within your own home, even though everyone was present, you were neglected. You were alone in your own home.
Yes.
Wow. What would you say was the dominant feeling you felt growing up?
Based on like listening to your podcast and reading your book, I was, oh my gosh.
Yeah, what's the, oh my gosh, are you feeling something right now?
I'm like forgetting what I'm saying here.
Why are you all of a sudden forgetting what you're saying? Stay with it. I'm just curious. What's going on inside of you right now?
I'm just like anxious because I don't have my stuff together, and I'm just like, I don't know how to describe it.
That's okay. But let me ask you, up to now, you've been doing great. Seriously, you've been just fine. Your answers have been coming easy and so on and so forth. Why do you think it hit you right now?
I don't know.
Take a shot. What might it be? Maybe there is no reason, but if there were a reason, why did all of a sudden the anxiousness come out and you sort of become flustered? And oh my gosh, why did it all of a sudden come out then when I said, what do you remember feeling as a child? Because you had already talked about the fear. Did something happen inside of you? And maybe it didn't, and that's okay.
No, it did.
Okay, and what happened inside? Now I heard something in your voice there, a crack in your voice. What are you feeling right now, Georgette?
I'm afraid that you're thinking that you're going to make fun of me or you're going to think negative of me.
Completely understand that. That makes total sense that you would feel that way. And I'm not going to hurt you, Georgette. I'm not here to hurt you. It's the very last thing I want. Okay? And that's how powerful those childhood experiences are, that you can be in a conversation with a random stranger whom you're actually familiar with and you've listened to, and, he tries to be, do right by people, and you're afraid of being hurt. That's how powerful that childhood stuff is. Wow.
Yes.
And so then, and it's okay. Let those feelings come. It's totally okay. Okay. And as you're doing that, let me ask you then again, what was the dominant feeling that you felt growing up?
That I wasn't worthy or I wasn't wanted.
Wasn't wanted. Okay. Now that's actually a thought. What would have been the feeling that accompanied that? Would it have been mad, sad, bad, glad, frustrated, excited, exuberant, blue,
shame?
Shame. Interesting. Of course. You had been told by really the most powerful person in your life, we discover in your family, was your sister. And you had been taught by her that you were a bitch and that she treated you like you were nothing. She treated you like you were her, I don't know what. What would be the word you would use? She treated you like you were what?
Like I was nothing.
Like you were nothing. And what's even worse is that, or just as bad, what's even worse, I see it, is that the people who had the power, the two people had the power, did nothing to protect you.
Yes.
Your mother checked out, your father was there, but he was checked out. And so the underlying message that they were confirming by their inaction, they were confirming, yeah, you're nothing. You don't matter.
Yes.
I want to just very briefly fast forward to today. What is the nature of your relationship with each of those three people, your sister, your mother, and your father?
Both of my parents are deceased.
Okay.
I have not talked to my sister in 15, almost 16 years. I haven't talked to my younger brother in about 5 years.
And what about your older brother?
I've had a good relationship with him, but all of a sudden, based on my life choices, since Christmas, I haven't talked to him.
And just may I ask, what are the life choices since Christmas?
I have decided that I'm in a relationship with a narcissist who has mentally and verbally abused my 16-year-old to the point where my 16-year-old has attempted suicide.
And so what does that have to do with your older brother, though?
He just doesn't like my life choice, that I'm making that choice. He thinks I should stay with him because I do have 2 other kids. I have a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old with him.
Yeah, well, your brother's wrong. So I'm glad you made the choice you did. That's the right choice. Good for you. I really applaud you for that.
It's a little more complicated. I can't afford my house myself, but my daughter wants to finish school within her school.
Makes sense. Well, and those can be so complicated to navigate, all those myriad different decisions and needs and so forth. So you are then alone in this world.
Basically, yes.
And you feel it, don't you?
Yes.
I'm very sorry for that. Let me ask you, have you felt alone your whole life? Has there been an aloneness, not just a loneliness, but an aloneness there, whether in a big amount or even a small amount? Has there been sort of a creeping aloneness there your whole life, or not really?
There was a short period of time that I didn't feel alone. I moved back from Florida 20 years ago, and after my dad passed away, my mom was there for me. She would sit there and talk to me. I had a relationship that I wasn't in Florida, and when I moved back, I lived with a lot of regret for leaving that relationship, and she could relate to my situation.
What was it like to connect with someone, to have the person who was supposed to protect you, the person who had checked out and left you to the wolves? What was it like to have her give a shit?
Felt good to have somebody to talk to who understood my feelings and my depression and things like that.
And it wasn't just that. It was the person. It was the person. It was your mother. What was it? Was it different? Was it more special because it was coming from your mother, or not, or that didn't make a difference? Did you feel connected with her as a daughter, or was it more, it's just nice to have someone to talk to? Whichever it is fine.
Honestly, I do feel like it was just to have somebody to connect to.
And that raised an interesting question. What ever became of the mother-daughter relationship, or did that just sort of die on the vine at a very young age?
I don't have much memory of before my brother was born. So I don't know what the relationship was before.
And I guess what I'm wondering is, did you and your mom ever have a relationship in your entire life? Like a relationship?
No.
Okay. And is supposedly same true of your dad?
Yeah, my dad, no, I never had a relationship with him.
Okay. And your mom was 22 when your sister was born, and we know your sister is 8 years older than you. So therefore, your mom was 30 when you were born. And if you're 42, that means your mom's dead. That means she died before she was 72. Both your parents are dead. They died young.
Yeah, my dad died at 62 and my mom died at 66.
Just as an aside, I have to ask, how did they die? I mean, for two people to die in their 60s who are married, that's just odd. How did they die?
My dad played softball to the day he died. Actually, as a matter of fact, he died on the softball field.
Softball player's dream, I guess. But okay, I just out of curiosity, heart attack or hit by a ball or what?
A heart attack. He fell over and was gone.
Okay, was he a smoker?
Yes.
Okay, maybe that's it. Not that is it. I'm just curious. And then mom died at 66. How?
Cirrhosis and pneumonia.
So, was she a heavy drinker?
She got into being a heavy drinker after it increased slowly after my dad died, and then it got really bad when I moved out.
Wait a minute. So it increased after your dad died, which implies, were your mother and father close?
No.
Okay, because that would have been my guess. Just makes me wonder why it would have increased when your dad died. You got to admit, it's interesting if they're not close, that her drinking increases when he dies.
I think it was a matter of him not yelling at her or ridiculing her for drinking too much.
So she had been drinking before that. Now the school marm is gone, and so now it's just like, here we go. Did your mom ever come out of that depression that started when you were, when your little brother was born?
To a certain point, but not completely, no.
Okay. Well, back to you then. So you grew up feeling shame. You grew up clearly afraid. In all of this, how much do you feel that you have done in terms of getting out the feelings and feeling it all and sort of, to use the catchword, processing it all? How much do you think you've done?
Maybe 50%.
And what is it, do you think, that's still stuck? I know the result you want is the ability to make friends. Okay, that's what you open with. What do you think is still stuck inside of you? Not in terms of results. The result would be making friends. What do you think the cause is that's still stuck, or the pain, or whatever it might be?
Just the fear of rejection, the fear of incompetency, stuff like that.
Okay. And you said when you were a kid, you clung to other adults in your life, like moms you would babysit for, and try to be friends with them. Why would you try to be friends with them? What is it that you perceived as presumably safer about them? Why them?
I'm not really sure.
Take a shot at it. You could change your mind in 5 minutes. What do you think the reason might be that you chose them? Because you could have chose peers. You could have chose older kids. It would be obvious. It's sort of obvious why you wouldn't choose to be, try to be friends with older kids, because your sister was older and that's scary and they have power. You might have tried to make friends with kids your age. That could be scary too, but there's sort of more of a balance of power there. You could have tried to be friends with kids younger than you, because, there's always the fear. I'm not saying any of these, it gets rid of the fear. But to choose to try to be friends with an adult seems to imply that they would feel potentially safer, but maybe not. What do you think the reason is that you chose to try to be friends with these moms that you would babysit for?
I became friends with them. Also, I was looking for that mother figure in my life. But I also feel like it was almost like a default, okay, they kind of have to like me.
Mm-hmm. And just out of curiosity, if you had gotten that mother figure, what do you think it was back then that you were most wanting from a mother figure?
Encouragement, somebody to help me through life.
Which has been harder for you over the years? Not knowing how to do life, that you would need sort of guidance for, or the fear of getting hurt?
The fear of getting hurt.
Okay. Georgette, we're going to come right back right after this short break.
I've been doing some real healing work in my life, and I mean hardcore. But I've been craving something new to level up. A friend of mine told me about this badass counselor. I gotta admit, I rolled my eyes. Then I watched a few of his videos, and yes, this is the guy. I went and got his audiobook, Badass Wisdom. Holy shit. Absolute ass-kicking, inspiring, deep, powerful shit, period. If you don't get this book, you're making a huge mistake. So do you got the guts to go big with your self-care? Go to badasscounseling.com. Get the book Badass Wisdom now.
This show provides soul counseling intended to entertain and inform and is not medical advice. Now, back to the badass.
And we are back with Georgette. Georgette, let me ask you, of all of the three players, the three primary players who had the most power in your life growing up, sister, father, and mother, of all of those three, who do you have the strongest feelings toward? Negative feelings, that is.
My sister.
And what would you sum up in one or two words you most feel towards your sister?
Hate.
What do you hate her most for?
Anger.
What do you hate her most for?
For causing me to have this life where I have low self-esteem, where I'm afraid of people.
That's totally understandable. Totally understandable. Just out of curiosity, what do you do for a living?
That's funny you ask. I am a neonatal nurse.
No kidding.
Yes.
No kidding. You've heard me say on the show, my sister-in-law she's been for a very long time. Very honorable work. You are saving lives of the most frail and the most fragile. Gosh, you are an angel.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. And so I want to play with your idea, though, that she caused you to have this life and so on and so forth. I'm not disputing that. That I'm not going to dispute. I just want to play with it because from my perspective as an outsider, I'm most angry at your mother and your father. See, the truth is, and I am in no way letting your sister off the hook. Zip, zero, not at all. That's bullshit what she did. It's fucking horrible what she did. However, the adults in the room didn't do their job, and the number one job, primo, numero uno, of parenting is protect. And not just physically protect, like a roof over your head and shoot the wolves outside the door and, protect your health by getting you a good doctor and, good hygiene and, healthy food. Protect your emotional well-being. It's a job of the parents. And you ain't that old, so it's not like we can say, it was a different generation back then. It wasn't, okay? Okay, you were born in roughly the early 80s, right? Right. Okay, that really wasn't that long ago. We're not talking about the 1940s here, okay? And they had a job to do, and they didn't do it. And because of that, before long, the inmates were running the asylum. And by inmates, I mean your sister. Would it be a reasonable statement to say that she had the most power in your household?
Oh, yes.
Right.
Oh, yes, for sure.
Right. And it sounds like you were basically at the bottom of the totem pole, or damn near.
Yeah, I was.
Yes. Right. And that totem pole being like that only existed because mom and dad washed their hands of the whole thing. They checked out. And their job. You don't have a child if you're not going to raise a child, but to have 4 kids, 4, and to check out again and again and again and again. That's fucked up. I hate your parents. I mean, yeah, I hate your sister for what she did to you. And there is no excuse that she was a 15-year-old, that she, or that she was 13 and, she's calling her 5-year-old sister a bitch and sticking her, feet in her sister's mouth and in front of other people. And that's just horrible. But that only exists because that child was not getting the love that she needed. That only exists because the sheriff checked out of town. The sheriff is mom. The sheriff is dad. My hatred is for your parents. Can you understand how an outsider who hasn't lived what you lived, can you understand how an outsider might see it that way?
Yes, I have come to seeing it that way, that it is their fault through listening to your podcast and such. But it's also, as far as like the blaming my mom is really hard because I know what it's like to go through depression and trying to do things for yourself. That's just, I don't know.
That's okay. That's fine. What's interesting about that is you said blaming my mom is really hard because I know what it's like to go through those things and so on and so forth, implying that I have compassion for my mother, but I don't have compassion for my sister. And that's okay. I'm not telling you should, but what's fascinating about that is that your mom still had more power than your sister. She always had more power, whether she exercised that power or not. Your sister came into the, and I need to again draw the distinction. I am in no way excusing your sister's behavior. I need you to understand that very, very clearly. But if we're looking at origins, your mother, from the beginning, when your sister was born, your mother had infinite power. Your sister literally had zero power. So your sister coming to age 13 and 15 with that amount of power means there was a transfer of power. Your mother gave it over to her. And you got to understand, by that age, okay, so you're born at 8 in roughly 84-ish, right? No, 81?
82.
82. And so by the time you're 5 and your sister is 13, it's now 87. Oprah's on TV already by now. Phil Donahue is on TV. These notions of child rearing and child abuse and good parenting and all this is common culture by this point. It's out there. All right. And so this notion of sort of being present and being absent, it's a choice. And you have 4 kids. It's just fascinating to me how you can be compassionate towards your mother. And I'm not asking you to be compassionate towards your sister. I'm just questioning the compassion for your mother or the holding back of the other feelings, because your mother had the power. Your mother had the power to stop your sister. You wanted to say something and I interrupted. I'm sorry.
It's hard because I'm doing the same thing to my own kids.
What are you doing?
So I can't help but have compassion for her because I'm doing the same thing.
Right. I totally understand that. What's interesting is you went through the same thing as your sister, though. You and your sister have one thing in common. You both had negligent parents, and your sister choking her mother, even if it were just a metaphor, and I understand it's not a metaphor, she literally choked her. But even if it were just a metaphor, the metaphor is the child saying, "You're killing me, and so now I'm going to kill you. You've been killing me." That your mother was neglectful of her. That child going crazy, acting in all these ways, is the child saying, "Look at me. Please love me. Please give me attention. What do I have to do? How bad do I have to be before somebody in this house gives a shit?" I am in no way excusing your sister, but there are origins of this behavior, and no matter what your sister did, nobody gave a shit. You and your sister have that in common. It's just the difference is she took the power and you were subject to her power. The difference is that, yeah, she took it out on you, and that's horrible, and it's inexcusable, okay? But you both lived the same thing. You were both screaming for parents to wake the fuck up and parent us. Okay, now, the hard part about that, as you just said, is I'm doing the same thing. What precisely is it, in one sentence or less, that you believe is your biggest, for lack of a better word, what's your biggest sin when it comes to your own children?
I have problem. I don't even know how to sit and play with them, give them time, communicate with them effectively.
And what is it you don't know how to do? I don't know how to play or communicate or give them time. Tell me, help me understand. And that's legit. That's totally legit. Help me understand why it's difficult to, let's say, sit on the floor and play a little game or put together a little 10-piece puzzle, or what about that is hard for you? Help me understand.
I've come to realize that I always find my mind is going, and it's like, oh, I need to do this, and I need to do that, and I can't just be present.
And so in sitting down, your brain is somewhere else. And that makes total sense. You have to understand, you have so much going on inside of you in terms of your past, obviously. But then I'm guessing there's a lot that always has to be done, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's hard. I want to ask you one more question. And then I want to loop KC in here as well. KC is a mom. I'm a dad. Rob is a dad. So we're all parents here, and I think every one of us has struggled with it. We've each been through divorces and hard relationships, but I'm going to loop KC in here in just a minute. But I want to ask you, you initially presented to us that you want to have friends, and I haven't been able to make them, and so on and so forth. Let me ask you this question, and it's going to sound silly, and it's a dopey question, and I admit it. We've all sort of heard the question before, but I'm going to ask anyway. What is it that you like the very most about yourself?
At this point that I was able to go back to school and be somewhat successful.
That's awesome. And went back to school and I became successful. And a career as a neonatal nurse is definitely a successful career in my book. Okay. What is it that you like the most about just who you are and your personality and your character?
I couldn't even tell you. I don't even know.
Well, good. I want you to try anyway, because that's not a good enough answer for me. I want you to tell me something that you like about you.
Considerate to other people. I'm empathetic to other people.
I believe that. And you wouldn't be able to be in your work if you weren't. It would be reasonable to assume, based on what you've done in going back to school, it would be reasonable to assume also that you can be driven and work hard. You got some, tenacity to you. Would that be reasonable to say as you see it?
Yes.
Yeah, you're doggone right. And I also know with you. Oh, go ahead.
I had to have a lot of I couldn't believe things when I got the letter of acceptance to the nursing program. I literally had to call the school to make sure that that was legit.
Right. And that's your old conditioning. I'm no good. I'm no nothing. They must have made a mistake. It can't be right. And you proved those voices wrong. You proved them wrong. And you've been proving them wrong your whole life. And now we're in the process of getting those voices out of there because they were bullshit to begin with. Let me ask you this. I believe you said you have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old, right?
5 and 3.
5 and 3. Let me ask you this. Is there anything about your 5-year-old that is innately or naturally unlovable, disgusting, bad about your 5-year-old? I mean, I'm sure they do bad things now and then, like, steal an extra cookie but is there anything about your 5-year-old that is just intrinsically horrible?
No.
So you're telling me then that your 5-year-old doesn't deserve to be called a little shit or a bad little girl and stupid person? She doesn't deserve to be called those things?
No, he doesn't.
He doesn't. Forgive me.
Yes, he.
Okay, fair enough. So he's a normal kid. He's a good kid, right? Sweet and rambunctious and playful and laughter-filled and can be ornery when he's tired. And I mean, the usual normal stuff, right? Sweet kid.
Yeah.
Sweet kid. Okay. And so if there would be no justification to anyone sort of calling him names like a loser or a pathetic little boy or weak or you'll never amount to anything. Those would be completely unjustified, right? They would be completely wrong, right?
Yes.
So then isn't it reasonable to assume that when you were 5 years old, every single thing that you were told about yourself by your sister was just wrong?
Yes.
Is it possible that there was never anything wrong with you to begin with? Never. You were a sweet, rambunctious, playful, maybe still a little extra cookie now and then, laughter-filled, kind, smart, pretty little girl. Is it reasonable to assume that that's what you were and there was never anything wrong with you to begin with?
Yeah.
Right. KC, are you there? Were you able to hear Georgette's story?
Yes. And I can totally relate to it because, as you know, it sounds a lot like part of mine.
Which part? Which
because
part?
You know my stories.
Yep.
Just I had an older sister that just tortured me when I was a child. I mean, used to hold me down with her boyfriend and squeeze the blackheads on my legs. I would get left with my sisters, and one of them in particular used to brush my hair and tell me that I smelled and that my hair was the rat's nest. And so I grew up thinking that I was really ugly and stupid and unwanted. And my parents were around, but they didn't witness the behavior, I guess. And so I can totally relate to a lot of the things that she was saying about, her feelings of inadequacy because of my own stuff and my own feelings of inadequacy. And then I realized something, through all that, I had a superpower, and I can see that she has it too. And that is that she's extremely empathetic to other people. She's kind, and those are her strengths. And when she really learns how to lean into those things and admire herself for them, she's going to be able to find a lot of self-love.
Casey, how did you get those voices out of you? What did it take for you to heal from those messages that you were sent?
I hope this is not going to sound cliche and like I'm pushing your book, but a lot of it was your method, your books.
But what specifically? What was the insight, or what was the action? What was it? Because Georgette, I believe, has read the book and listened to the podcast and so forth.
I think it was one thing that you said, and it was like, who are the critical? If you had to guess right now, right at the second, who are the critical voices in your head? And I realized that it wasn't my parents; it was my sisters. Like I said, in particular, one sister. Mm-hmm. So I identified the critical voices that were in my head. And then as I got to go back through my own story, I realized where all those insecurities came from and who planted them. And then I was able to work through the hatred of this person that I actually loved, and that person is not in my life anymore. And that was really hard for me too, because I am a person that, had it built into me as a child. Family is everything.
And so
you do everything for family.
And so let me ask you, what is a question that you might have for Georgette in all of this?
When do you see the beautiful human being that you are and the accomplished human being? I mean, you're a neonatal nurse. You have 3 children. When are you going to be able to see that? When are you going to be able to get your sister's voice out of your head? When do you allow her to stop when do you stop allowing her to control your life?
Any thoughts on that, Georgette?
I don't know. You tell me.
Understood. Georgette, thoughts inside of you as you hear Casey sort of describe her story a little bit. What goes through your head?
Honestly, it makes me think like I shouldn't think like, because her story to me is worse. Like, that's horrible. But yeah. So I just don't feel like, oh, maybe I'm being a baby about it.
No.
Oh my God.
No. And forgive me. I can understand why you would feel that way. I get that. No, that certainly wasn't Casey's intent, but more importantly,
nope.
You can't do that to yourself, Georgette. But I understand that. I understand. You have every right to feel this way. And I can't imagine what it would be like every day. You weren't protected. You were never safe. You weren't safe in your own home. And then you go out into the world and you don't know if you can trust anyone. So you feel unsafe in the world. Right?
Yeah.
And you've been living that ever since. And so let me ask you today, what is the great fear, or what are the great fears, the biggest fear that you have now as you walk in the world today?
People talking behind my back
and
making fun of me behind my back.
And to the best of your knowledge, for instance, at your work, do people do that to the best of your knowledge?
Just the other day that happened, yes.
Oh no, that's heartbreaking. Let me ask you, in your everyday life, let's talk about your sort of your self-disciplines and your soul work. What sort of work do you do on yourself? I believe you said you listen to the podcast. Have you read the book? Are you a journaler? Talk to me a bit.
So I listened to the entire book, and just because I feel like I have like only a lot of my memories are just like photographic memories, like blips in my life. So I had heard you say that you'd have your clients, not that I plan on, whatever, do an autobiography. So I've been working on that, just because I like, and it's been very helpful because there's a lot of things that I forgot about.
Wow.
About my life.
Wow. And so that's actually quite interesting. There have been a lot of things that I forgot about my life, and it's been helpful. How has remembering those things then been helpful? Help me understand.
It's not helpful, I guess.
You said helpful. You said helpful. So I was just taking your word. What if not helpful, then what has it been? Because you said it's been really helpful, and I've remembered a lot of things about my life that I had forgotten. So I guess it sounds like you're describing it as a positive experience. What about it has been positive? Let's put it that way.
I guess no, not a lot of it has been positive, but it's just things that maybe I forgot, like feelings maybe I've suppressed.
And what has that experience been like? Describe that experience of having feelings, experiencing feelings that you had suppressed. Describe that experience for me. Now, in retrospect, what was it like to experience and to see the memories and to feel the feelings that you had suppressed? What was that experience like?
Insightful, because I feel like I one of the things is like you're saying to go like deep, and I'm just like, is there something I'm missing? Like I've come to terms with somewhat with the things that happened to me, and I have hated her for a very long time.
Here's the thing. Let me ask you a question. I might have misunderstood, so just clear me up on this. You listened to the book, which is great. It's really great, and I'm betting you had some new insights from that and so forth, and wrote the autobiography. You don't mention whether or not you actually did the exercises in the book in writing.
Yeah. So my plan was to, once I've finished with the autobiography, is take your book chapter by chapter and do the journaling exercises.
Gotcha. I guarantee you that's going to change everything. For the exact same reason. And so my ears always go up, and I get clients who will come to me and say, yes, man, I read your book. And I'll say, did you do the exercise? No, I just, And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And I'll bet probably 50% of the people that read the book would admit that I read it the first time, and then I went back maybe the third time, and I actually did the exercise. And everybody has a different reason. I don't have time, or Sven, I'm a truck driver. I can't sit and write shit, or whatever. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's a completely different book when you do the exercises. It's a completely different book, and for the exact reason that you already actually stated. You said, Sven, holy shit! When I wrote that autobiography, it's like, Wow. Insights, Sven. I had memories. Holy crap. Felt feelings that I'd suppressed. So it's one thing to feel the feelings of hatred towards your sister, for example. It's another thing to write it down. It's another thing to be pushed by the book, to be pushed to write your sister a letter that you don't send to her. I mean, if you want to, you can, but nothing's really gained by doing that in terms of your own healing. It's one thing to admit, I'm pissed at mom, but I'm compassionate towards mom. It's a completely different thing to literally write those exact same sentences on paper. Because in one case, I'm experiencing it inside of me, this feeling of anger, this feeling of sadness, this feeling. It's another situation when I literally put that out of me onto paper, and now I'm looking at it. Now I'm not experiencing it. Now I'm seeing it. And I don't know the science behind it, if there is even science behind it. I only know the human experience of it, that when it's out of us, it's a completely different thing. In fact, I want you, if you would, Georgette, I want you to check back in with the show after you've done all the exercises in the book. I am really, really curious. And, give it, however many months it takes. But I want you to check back in.
It's going to be a bit.
And it is. And that's normal. because you're conjuring up the past. You are finally unlocking the vault. We keep that vault locked. We suppress, to use your word, we suppress all that stuff so that we don't have to feel it. So then once we unlock that vault and open it up, oh my. There was a poster, it was an advertisement back in I want to say the late 70s, early 80s. Rob can date me on this one. But it was black and white, and it was sort of it wasn't a tall poster, it was a long poster, and it was black and white, and it was this guy with long hair sitting like in this lounge chair that was really deep, and so you could just sort of see his head and his arms, and then 15 feet out in front of him was this speaker, and it was an advertisement for Maxell that made speakers and tapes back then, and all you see is just his hair being blown back straight. In other words, you can't hear it, but the speaker is on really loud and it's blowing his hair back. And so that's the experience when we open that vault. It's going to blow your hair back. It is going to floor you in ways that you got floored when you wrote that autobiography, like sort of those holy shit moments. And now we're flushing it out. Now we're flushing it out because before you've been keeping it in, you've been feeling the feelings, but it's the flushing out and putting it on paper. It changes everything. I want to thank you so much for coming on to the show, Georgette. And I'm going to ask you if you'd stick around after the show just for a few minutes. Would that be okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on to the show. It's been a fascinating story, truly fascinating. And wow, and that we can each see so much of ourselves in your story. It's kind of neat, isn't it? How that someone can come on the story, and now KC is like, oh my God, Georgette is speaking my story. It's interesting how we see ourselves in others, and it sort of unlocks something in ourselves. Well, thank you again, Georgette, and thank you to everyone tuning in around the world and listening in on Georgette's story. And if her story spoke to you, in your own work, in your own journaling, write about that. What was it about Georgette's story, and what are the feelings that got conjured up inside of you as you listen to her story? Your feelings of compassion, or your feelings of you got it, girl, you can do this, or your feelings of your own sadness that she helped you unlock today. Whatever it was, do that in your own journaling. On behalf of KC remotely and Rob here in the studio, I want to thank everyone for tuning in. On behalf of the Badass Counseling Show, have a kick-ass day.
The Badass Counseling Show is strictly copyrighted. No copies may be made without the express written consent of the Badass Counseling Show, LLC. The Badass Counseling Show is produced by Karen Camparelli and Robert H. Friedman. Executive producer Sven Erlandson. Original music by two-time Emmy Award-winning composer Trevor Morris. Have a kick-ass day.